Hey everyone, Adam Shafran, Flying Fox Fruits. Today we're coming at you with another video. This one is really something that I wish other growers maybe would have put together and showed to me. There's a lot of common mistakes that someone can make when they're growing fruit trees, especially stuff that's maybe rare and new to them. But I want to go over some common mistakes that I made and that you might make when trying to grow rare fruit trees in pots and in the ground. Let's take a look. So one of the first big mistakes that I remember making a long time ago was soil mix. I was using mixes from other growers and from the store, things that I could find that other people were using, and sometimes I would wonder, why are these trees here doing better than those trees there? Well, one time I had a bunch of trees that were at a nursery, and there was two separate types of soil. There was one that was mostly peat moss, one that had a lot of pine bark. I noticed that for me, in growing my fruit trees, the ones that like, acid soil, maybe neutral soil, a decent amount of moisture, the peat moss is going to be neutral to acid, mostly not alkaline. It depends on what you're watering with too. Like if your water is alkaline, you're going to be turning the peat moss neutral over time. If you have acid water, it's going to keep everything nice and acid. So the pH of peat moss by itself is relatively neutral. That's what I've been told if you research it. People will say acid, and there's all this and that, whatever. It's basically acid to neutral. But some of the pine bark, I noticed it was that it wasn't totally composted, and it would make it so the roots can't grow. I got the worst root growth. And I always noticed people that would put in compost, manure, sandy manure, and pine bark have the worst results with their growth. So be careful what kind of mix you use. There's a bunch of mixes you can use. Sand is fine, pine bark is fine, compost is probably fine, but you have to get everything just right. And sometimes you can encourage a lot of worms in the pot, just regular old earthworms, and that's usually from not enough fertilizer. If you fertilize regularly, it helps kind of keep them at bay. But if you keep the plant in the shade, it seems like, or on a wet mat, and all the leaves drop on top, you get an explosion of worms in the pot, and it can eat the roots up. It's a rare thing, but it happens to all the plants. It can happen. So that was my advice, is be careful. I like to use mainly peat moss. This is just basically 100% peat moss with just a little touch of perlite, maybe 3 to 5% perlite, if that, and then another 3 to 5%, maybe actually only 2% to 1% of Espoma, the Hollytone. It's this product over here. It's called Hollytone Espoma. It's an organic fertilizer, and it just helps enrich everything. It adds like a mycorrhiza, some beneficial biology that comes out like a fungus and helps everything grow. That's the difference too between getting good root growth on some of these and not, is that little bit of mycorrhiza. You can buy packages of it online, and there's also a lot of products that have it in it already. ProMix has it in it already. I don't like to use the ProMix. It's a really expensive bag that comes in a cube, and everyone buys it, and it's really heavy and it has a lot of perlite. But you can take ProMix and use it like perlite. I recommend doing that too if you want to kind of be fancy, is buy a bag of the ProMix. HP has got more perlite. You can buy HP or BX. The HP has more perlite, but you buy the HP and cut it with peat moss and a little bit of Hollytone, and it makes a wonderful mix. You don't have to add any perlite, and it's easier to breathe. I might start doing that again in the future. It's just buy a bag of ProMix HP, which will have more perlite. It's for growing seedlings in little plugs and trays, and not big pots. In the big pots, they have you use a mix with less perlite. They want, I guess, less drainage, less porosity, I guess. Anyway, so that's that. Another thing that people do a lot too when they're repotting is, let's show. You'll take a tree like this, whether it's in the ground or in a new pot. You take it out of the pot, and this one's been a little wet. I like to knock off all the leaves on there. But sometimes, you see, you have what's called the root crown, and that's this area right here where there's no more root growth, and it just kind of goes from bark to root. and it's right here. It's right in this region, wherever the soil level was. If you bury the tree too deep, it can kill it. So you always want to, when you repot, maybe let it be up a little bit. I call it like a muffin top, but just let it be a little higher, because it's going to settle. You're going to think that you've planted it at a level that is level, and over the years, in the ground especially, and in a pot, the tree will settle. So I like to take my trees and put them in the pot, and always make sure that, like, if there's a tap root, you see, like, I'm looking for any long roots here. This root, if this root gets taken and turned like this, it's like makes the tree never want to grow. So you have to make sure that this is pointed down if there's a long root. You point that down in there. I kind of just mush it down with my hand. Center the tree, and then fill in with some soil all around it. And then I'm gonna push down all around the sides. We're gonna lift this up here. And then I push along the edges here until it's really packed in tightly all along. I'm not really hurting the root ball, but I'm pushing where there's no roots. And then here's the root crown. I can feel it here, the old soil. And I'm kind of just mush everything down a little bit, flatten it out. And that could be good. I could add more soil, but that could be good. Now, the way I pot my trees is I like to leave like about 4 inches right there from the lip of the pot. That's so when I go to water, that it holds a lot of water and the soil doesn't wash out. But there's other growers that don't do that. And it's because they have their trees on like a drip system, where they can just mound up the trees in the pot really high like this, like an anthill. You know, I should have left it up there. They mound it up really high like an anthill. Then they have them on drippers where they get the irrigation. So I don't do that. I hand water everything. So all of my pots are at the highest, planted only 2 inches to the lip. But look at all the pots and you see how I do them. And that way you can repot them in the same pot. You can lift the tree up back into the same pot. So here's a big mistake that people make. See, after I repotted this tree, I put it right over here. But you got to consider, where's the sun going to come? Like, a lot of people will put them in too much shade or too much sunlight sometimes. A big thing to think about is that pot. Right now, the sun isn't hitting it. But as we approach the winter season, the sun sinks down in the horizon and it will cook. The side of the pot just gets cooked. So sometimes you have to shield the pot with another pot, or maybe some leaves or anything, or put it somewhere where the side of it doesn't get cooked. I like to let the weeds grow up or up over the pot sometimes, like let the grass grow really tall. That'll protect it. Put other pots, or just put them where they won't get burned. Another thing that I've noticed that I do sometimes is I either overwater. I usually overwater. I don't underwater. I overwater. Overwatering, let me show you what that looks like. Well, here, this isn't overwatering, but you see these rocks I have piled up on the top? I had a tree that I piled the rocks up on the pot to make it so it wouldn't blow over and so the chickens wouldn't dig in it, but it made the water stay really saturated in the pot. So that's something to consider, where if you pile rocks on top of something, don't do it to something that needs a lot of drainage. Jawbows might like it, or even something that's really root bound in a pot that's drying out a lot. Maybe you could do that with it. But be careful, some stuff you can suffocate it, too much bricks on top. I see some of these trees in here. These are all like special jabuticabas that I have that I put over here, and they got just a little too much sunlight. You can see some of them maybe die back, where you get these pieces of dead wood here like this that need to be pruned off. Let's see if I can go. There we go. Now it looks brand new. And a little bit of fungus here and there where it's kind of hard to show, but like this is some leaf burn in the sun. You got to learn to look at the leaves and identify what's going on. This is not nutrient deficient. This is a hot day that scorched the leaf. You see how it looks like someone almost took a magnifying glass to it? So some of the leaves are all ate up by fungus and bacteria, but the tree is fine. But I'll show you, these are all on a plastic mat, and let me find something that's too wet over this way. So these are some trees that I have growing in basically like full shade. Throughout the day, it's all in the shade. It's really good, but you got to be careful if they get too wet. you're gonna have problems. Like this one probably got too, it looks okay, but this pot is so saturated. If I took it out of the pot, the roots would be like falling apart. So it needs to dry out. It needs to get some fertilizer, just a touch. If you over fertilize, some of these trees will kill them. The jabuticaba, probably some of the eugenias, but like the garcinias and some trees can handle a lot more fertilizer. The annonas, you gotta know what you're doing when you fertilize. So be careful about at least killing the jabuticabas with too much nitrogen at once. If you give them the right amount, it's wonderful. If you give them too much, you're killing them. And these plastic mat underneath is a little too non-porous. And we had some that declined. I think I pulled most of them out, but I'm looking for something that died. There's one over here that definitely died. Right there. This one probably got too wet. This is, you see what happens. They just kind of lose all their leaves and look like they're cooked. But this was in a spot, this thing is so heavy, it got too wet. So be careful about keeping them in the shade and letting them get too wet. This may come back. Let's see what else. This is a nice one in the ground. Now this is a grafted Schatzer's hybrid, but look at how the tree is so bare and stick-like. It looks like it's dead. You gotta know that that's a seasonal thing, guy mosquito. But look at all this new growth coming out, all the nice new growth. I gave it a little fertilizer. Yeah, there's gonna be some dieback. Yeah, there's some yellow leaves, but when you see nice, healthy, rich new growth with full color coming out, basically on any plant, you know it's doing well. So I always, to judge a tree's health, is look at the bark and look at the new growth. If the bark is full of lichens and looks like it hasn't peeled in years, if you can zoom in on that big tree all the way over there, look at that lichen full bark. That tree is borderline healthy. It's full of patches everywhere. It needs help. If I could dig it up and put it in a pot, it'd be happier. But always assess a tree's health by looking at the bark. If it hasn't peeled in a long time and looks full of lichens, probably not that healthy. But sometimes the leaves look like shit, but the tree's just fine. And that's a lot of the times with jabuticabas, annonas for sure, because they're deciduous. So knowing whether a tree is deciduous, semi-deciduous, or evergreen is a big deal too. If a tree is evergreen and it looks really bad, it's probably because it's summertime and the leaves are all cooked and it's just gonna kind of shed those and go on. Really common mistake, it happens to me every year. We have all this under canopy growing area and then all these Coronata Hestinga seedlings, rare jabuticaba. This one, look at here. It's on the south side where the sun is hitting the pot at the bottom. It's not doing it now, but at the end of the day, it's hitting this pot. And you see the leaves. They're just starting to wilt just a little bit, just a little wilty. If you don't stay on top of it, it's always gonna be that tree that's getting hit by the sun in the wintertime. Stay on top of that. So I really want to illustrate. It's always that one tree. And we're gonna move that now. Here we have a jabuticaba. I think this one got dried out. Like it didn't get watered one day and it got too hot. One mistake I've seen is people throwing away a tree when it's still gonna come back. You wanna take it and scratch it and look for green. And if there's any bit of green at all, it's got a chance. This one looks like it's dead. So one common mistake is giving up on a tree when it still has life. I'm gonna let it maybe try to come back. I think it's dead, but look at this one over here. This is one that I think it got too wet or maybe too dry one day. It's a special one. You see, the whole thing died, but back to a little stump at the bottom. So don't give up on a tree. Even if you scratch it and it looks like it's dead, it still could come back from the very bottom. So I didn't give up, I still have it. And there it is. Learning just how to tell when something needs water is a big deal. This is just a roselle. There appears to be two seedlings in one pot. One looks really healthy and fine. The other looking like it's hurt a little bit, needs some water. But just look at this pot. You can just feel like you pick it up and it's like full, you know, it's dry. That tree needs to be repotted, but I don't want to put it in a new pot. But it's a good example of something that shows that it's bulging. If you leave a tree in a pot much more than these are just herbs, but it's a good example to show one that it's just to know when they're ready to come out. It's like got this feeling where it's like, you know,
It's all root.
it's all root. There's no space left, nothing left. But I'm gonna let them get root bound. That's the other thing, letting stuff get root bound and knowing what's okay to let get root bound. For instance, like your mangoes, they say it's bad to let them get root bound. If you let a mango get root bound and stunted from the beginning as a seedling, the rootstock, it's always gonna stay stunted. For me, that's okay, because I'm not really interested in having big, huge trees, and I'm not interested in having max production on my mangoes. I just wanna have them alive and stay small where it's cold. So I've never really worried about it. But if I was a production farmer, I'd be worried about my trees getting like root bound and then trying to graft onto them. Toppy told me it was a bad thing. But if you have an air layered tree versus a grafted tree, it's not the same thing. So you have to know certain trees can handle being root bound and some can't. Root stress is another thing. Rollinia, for instance, the beauty butt, it's an Annona. Man, if you stress those roots out, they just die out of nowhere. I killed a really big one. It was beautiful, fruiting tree. I went to repot it. It was in a big pot and I thought it was ready. I go to take it out and the whole root ball just falls apart. And I was like, oh, I'll be able to save it. There's some roots left. No, the roots were so brittle, it was done. It never came back. Repotting a tree too early and having it all be heavy soiled and it just falls apart is a big mistake. Watch for it on Annonas. Watch for it on Garcinias. A lot of times there'll be a tree with a taproot. It just comes down and there's no lateral. You go to repot it and the tree's big and healthy and strong, but there's just no lateral roots. And you like take it out, everything falls out. And you're left with just like a stick and a giant taproot that goes around and a giant tree. And you're like, oh no. The Garcinias handle it pretty well. If you're gonna stress the roots out, if you're dealing with a tree that you're really worried about and it's hot outside, summertime, not a lot of rain, you really stress out the roots, you need to stress out the canopy too. Cut the leaves off. It's like a roots to shoots ratio, and that will save a lot of trees. When you're repotting things, if you have to bare root them, trim the leaves or strip the leaves off, all the new growth, and it really helps them recover by not losing water through the surface area of the leaf. That's a big thing I had to learn, where it's counterintuitive. It's like, here I am dealing with this tree and I've just stressed it out. It lost a bunch of root mass and it fell apart. And it's like, oh, we'll just put it in a pot and put it in the shade and don't hurt it anymore. No, that's not the way to go. It's like, all right, now we got to take off all the leaves, any new wood, trim it back, put it in the shade, make sure the wind doesn't blow it around. Wind is a killer when you're growing fruit trees and you have a damaged one, you just repotted it, or one you just planted. The wind comes and just blows it this way a little bit, blows it that way a little bit, and before you know it, the tree's dying. So bracing trees that are root stressed or recently planted is a big thing. I do a lot of mine by just putting them somewhere where they won't get blown around. I strategically place my plants, you know? So, there's a lot more I could tell you. I'm gonna think of some other ideas here. Let's check the list while you're still on camera. pH is a big one. If your pH is wrong, I want to show you something that is screaming, I need help. There'll be a tree every once in a while, and you'll be like, why is this tree mad at, like, why won't it do what I want? All the leaves come out yellow. I'm not really seeing it. I mean, this is like kind of what people will see is, you see the new growth coming out and it's just a little pale. You know, it's not the richest color. That's kind of what you're looking for. You'll see these certain trees that just look pale. This is borderline, like this is kind of what it's coming out of it. This one just needed some fertilizer, but these are signs of chlorosis, where your new leaves come out pale. And all it usually takes is a little fertilizer.
So they should come out red?
Should come out nice and rich in color. Sometimes some trees have a more pale color. You find out like the baseline of what the decent color is, but most of the times it's a rich color of peach or red or wine reds. And always be looking at you. Here's one here. This is chlorotic right here. See that? It's gonna be fine, but that's just a little chlorotic. Like it could use some fertilizer. That tree could use some fertilizer. But if you're fertilizing the trees and they don't respond, something that you can use is called chelated iron. And it's a chemical product that acidifies everything You pour it on the roots, you drench the roots with it, and it will make it so even if your soil is alkaline, the tree's able to uptake those nutrients, the iron and all that. But it's not good to eat the fruit off a tree that was treated with chelated iron. But little treatments of chelated iron, drenching the roots and spraying the tree, can turn this into healthy, perfectly green. I mean, these are all going to come out of it. They're fine. You can usually take a tree out of chlorosis just by feeding it. So another thing I like to say is for people that have city water, if you have a tree that's sensitive to city water, like the miracle fruit, and you have it out in full sun, it's going to require more watering. And here you are hitting it with the water that is high pH and the tree doesn't like it. You're going to turn that tree yellow and unhappy much faster than if you put it in the shade and it needs less watering. So you put a dish underneath, a little shallow dish, put it in the shade, maybe keep it in a pot. But if you have a tree that's just planted out in full sun and the soil pH isn't very good, even if it's in a pot. I mean, in the ground is worse. If you have it in the pot and the soil pH is fine, then you have a chance. It's still going to turn yellow. This goes for all these rare fruit trees, but a miracle fruit tree is a really good baseline tree where if you can grow a miracle fruit tree and the tree comes out looking happy and healthy, you should be able to grow all the rare jabuticabas and garcinias that I grow. But I think people should be growing the miracle fruit as an indicator plant for the cold. When the leaves turn red, it's like, oh gosh, like the leaves are red on my miracle fruit. That's definitely going to hurt my Rollinias and my soursops and my garcinias. It's a really good indicator plant because it will live through almost anything, but it will show you what's been going on and what your temperatures are. So I never thought about that till recently, but I recommend growing the miracle fruit in a pot at least as your indicator plant. And I have them around the property in several spots, and I can always tell how cold it's been and what the pH is. If your pH is high, the miracle fruit will let you know. And if you have them in shade, you don't need to water as much. If you put a dish underneath and it's in a pot, you have everything controlled and you'll keep a tree much happier. Miracle fruit, rare jabuticaba, garcinia, what have you. If you have to do less watering with that high pH water, keep it in the shade. Have a little dish underneath. Don't keep it flooded, but you want to think, how can I use less of this water that I don't like? But if a tree requires full sunlight and you have it in the shade, that's a problem. So these are all things you gotta brainstorm. I can't think of much else. I just wanted to go over some of the things. I'm sure I forgot something. Overwatering, underwatering, light intensity, yeah. That's about it. Those are the things that I could think of where I think that could help some people out maybe, just to think about that, okay? Thanks for watching and thank you, Rolling.
Rolling. Thank you. What else?